on outside, and I don't want to see it. And he left. But, it was like before Christmas, and it's dark around 6 o'clock, but there he was, and he didn't even make me sign that little thing,
Yeah.
And he left in a hurry, and it just got steadily worse. The scratching at night, the things that ran, I went out to my truck one night to get something that I'd left. It was August. The light was on. It was not a scary scenario. I got to the front corner of the house, and I thought it was my grandson that was snuck out of the house and was going to try to scare me. I hear these feet running at me, and I brace myself, and something blew through me, and I turned around, and I saw all these twigs and things rolling across the cement, and I was freezing. And I'm like, what was that? It wasn't scary, but it was, it made you wonder.
Of course. Wow. Well, let's move. I really, I think what I'm going to do right here is let's take our break right here. It's 9:31. Let's take our break, and then we'll come back and we'll move to 2009. And I know this is going to be painful, but I also understand, why you want this out there. People, you're going to have to hear this to actually believe it. And I read everything, and even though I knew some of it, I still sat there in the chair and I just couldn't imagine what I was looking at. But we should be back in a very few minutes with Cindy and Lindsay, and this is Inception Radio, and this is Epic Voyagers. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Epic Voyagers. This is Michael Rambacher. Joe pushing the slides in Chicago there. And we have Cindy and Lindsay from the Niagara case. We're going to pick this right up. Rockstar has a great question, and we're going to let Lindsay answer this. Did you get any high EMF spikes during the investigation? Go ahead, Lindsay.
Yes, we did. We got some out back behind Cindy's house, not so much in the front area. They were pretty good. It would spike back and forth, but they were mostly on the high end of the scale, out back.
Okay, out back.
Yeah.
Was that a prominent phenomenon? When you were there, and there were many investigative groups over the years that came through there, right. Did they get them in approximately the same area, or was it really spread out on different times?
No, it was more in the same area, out back.
Okay, fine. All right. Okie doke. It was out back. Interesting. I think there was one spot out back in one of my trips. I think it was actually when we actually gridded the property, or the amount that gave it to us, that I stopped in the one corner over by where the garden was, and it was just something strange about that area of the land at the time, I remember. Starlight's got a question. Is there a portal on the property? Well, that's, I suppose, up to who's looking at it, I guess. I don't know. I've never asked that question of either of you, so do you guys have any opinion on that? I have one, but do you guys have an opinion on it?
Go ahead.
I was told there was, okay? And, of course, I was told by the demonologist, and I just couldn't take anything he said too seriously.
Sure.
Because, it's kind of a common sense thing, and I don't see that.
Okay. Lindsay, did you have an opinion on that?
Nope.
No opinion. Okay.
No.
Here's my take. I don't think there is a portal. I'll be honest with you. I honestly don't think there is one. Again, I think we got to go back to that hole in the ground in the front yard. I still insist that whatever that energy was that was plaguing your property was accessing it through that cistern, that whatever was left of the structure that was originally there, that was torn down, or what was left of it. I honestly still believe that energy was coming in through that hole in the ground into the reality of what we were. And I still believe that it has something to do with the history. No doubt in my mind, it has to do with the history. And I guess what we're going to be dealing with is what we're going to discuss as moving to the year 2009. And Cindy, do you want to start in on that?
Well, 2009 was not a good year. I had noticed that my grandson was going downhill real bad. He would go off in his room by himself. He didn't want anything to do with anybody, and he just kind of stayed in there and didn't bother, with us. And I think about, March. It started to where I don't know I can't describe what I was feeling, but I got a phone call telling me that my granddaughter had hung herself. And, things go into kind of a blur for the next week or two. She was 14 years old and beautiful.
Yeah, yes, beautiful.
And now she's gone.
Yeah.
And she is another person who, of course, is, attached to this place. And it's going by, and I just keep hearing all these things and seeing these people going. And a month later, my daughter's husband did the same thing. He hung himself.
Yeah, but the ironic thing about that was, you relayed the story to me, and I really believe that he was under the influence of something because of the situation and how that all turned out. And I know this may be very hard for you to relate. If you want to relate the story, that's fine. Otherwise, if you want me to do it, I won't be happy to do it, but I'll do it the best that I know. It's your choice.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
Tell what you know.
Okay. All right. The son-in-law was, if I'm correct, from Jamaica, and he had, if I remember right, Cindy, his brother or two brothers came up at one point.
Yes, the family did come up here, and most
Right.
of them live in Canada.
Okay.
He, hard-working man, and a good dad to his kids, wonderful dad to his kids. And for reasons unknown to us, he knew about the things that were happening here, and he did some kind of a Jamaican thing that they do to get rid of what they refer to as spirits and the evil, the bad things. So anyway, he did this, and within 6 months he was gone. And gone the same way that everybody else had gone.
Yeah, but the situation around that is really amazing. And the fact was that he had 5 knives with him. And
yes,
go ahead.
Actually, they called it a mental breakdown. He took 5 knives, the number of people in his family, including my daughter, to the house, and he broke in and actually tried to murder her. And when they took him away, he, of course, went to jail, and he hung himself in the jail.
Yeah. Yeah, people. Hung himself right in the cell a couple hours after he was taken into custody. And why he would have had to cut his way into his own house when he could have walked in the front door, and why he would have brutally beat his wife, And, fortunately, there must have been somebody in the neighborhood that saw all this going on and called the police. Otherwise, it would have been a whole lot worse than it turned out. But it's still something that it's just beyond. And if I remember reading the obits of both the granddaughter and your son-in-law, it was almost like a month and a half apart, if I remember the dates on it.
Yeah, and the worst part was his obituary, talking about where he came from, what a good person he was, hard worker, how he loved his children. And on the other side of his obituary was his arrest and the amount of bail and the fact that he killed himself.
Absolutely amazing, people, to actually hold that paper, read the obit on one side, flip it over, and you read the whole case of how he got where he was. It was just amazing. I said, this is just beyond. And to hold one piece of paper and find the situation on one side and the end result on the other side was just mind-blowing to me. Just crazy. Just nuts.
Well, by this time, my grandson had gotten really bad, and we had to put him into a hospital where he stayed for a long, long time. But before he went into the hospital, we started to notice changes in him. And when I say changes, his forehead would kind of bow, his face would bow out, his eyes, which are blue, were black, and he had a big, huge black circles under his eyes, and talked in a voice that I'd never heard before. And at this point, the demonologist is telling me that the boy is he's had something attached to him. And I was more than willing to believe him because I saw this boy do things that 3 full-grown men could not do. I saw him lift people, a nurse in a hospital, and throw her down the hallway. I saw him break the hand of a guy as big as a football player. I saw him pick up a foosball table like it was, a cardboard box. Things that people have, you wouldn't believe it if you saw it.
Wow. Cindy, do you want to take a call right at this point?
Sure.
Okay, why don't we try doing that? Okay. 770, go ahead. We have Cindy and Lindsay on the line. What's your question, sir?
I think that's me.
Okay.
This is Sharon. I'm calling from Canton, Georgia. Love you guys. So this was a young boy. What was his age?
Yes, he was about 11 when it started, and about 14 when we finally got rid of it.
Wow. These kinds of things, does residual stay with him for the rest of his life? Because you kind of wonder, has that veil been lifted, and does it stay with them for the rest of their life?
Not that I can see right now, and I think, Michael, because you saw the boy during that time, and you saw him just a couple days ago.
Right.
What do you think of him now compared to then?
I'll be honest with you, caller. You haven't heard the rest of the story, but that would answer your questions.
Well then...
No, it's all right.
I'm anxious to hear it. Yeah.
No. Yeah, it's all right. The boy, honestly, is still in high school, but the school district has informed Cindy here that they have no more curriculum that can occupy him. He is beyond what they can offer him so that he would become totally bored. So actually, Niagara community college has taken him in. So he's actually doing high school and community college at the same time in physics. Hello, people. Physics. And we had a conversation about that. It is beyond where this has gone to. And caller, great questions, phenomenal observation on your end. We're going to fill in the gap between throwing the nurse down the hall and where your question comes from and what I saw 2 weeks ago. So we will fill in that gap, and you'll understand.
Right, and I'm so sorry to make you jump the gun sooner, but just one last comment, and then I'll let you go. Thank you very much for answering that. But it makes you wonder, the mind, just where it can go, basically what this spirit came into this world with, and it was not given everything that it needed. So you think that this is my thought, is that, negative energies went into that void because he didn't have anything positive to use up that space in his mind and in his spirit. And so, he just, luckily, I hope him being pushed forward and being moved on puts him in a place where he can pick up and have a normal, somewhat of a normal life. So, thank you very much. I'm gonna hang out and keep listening. This is just, I love your station. I love your station. I will listen to it. I listen to it almost 24/7. So, thank you very much. I'll listen to you guys forever. Good night.
Good night. Thank you very much for your question. And I guess, Cindy, we've had that discussion between us, and I guess what we really have come up with, first of all, it's my recollection that he really doesn't remember the majority of all that stuff when he was, whatever we'll call it for the lack of anything else, we'll call it for the under the influence. So your grandson doesn't really remember a lot of what happened, but I don't know. I guess you could elaborate on that, and then we can move on.
Well, that's part of it, and when he was in the hospital, the part that I showed you.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Anybody probably listening knows that about 100 milligrams of Seroquel will knock anybody down. I had the chance to show you that. I wanted you to see it so you'd know. This boy was on 800 milligrams of Seroquel a day, and it was written right next to it with no effect. No effect. And on top of the 800 milligrams of Seroquel, he was on 400 milligrams of Tegretol. And I kept having to go to the hospital to sign papers to get his IMs, that's his injections, his intermuscular injections, hiked because he kept injuring staff. He injured 12 people while he was in this place. And nothing worked. Nothing.
Yeah. Wow. It's
yeah.
You sometimes are at a loss for words, and I guess why, because I don't exactly know how it was set up and how I was exactly called in. But why don't we jump to that point, and that might help a little bit of a description of what we had to deal with.
Well, on the day that the last day that the demonologist was here, he'd been through all the deaths, and he finally, I guess, decided that he'd bitten off a little bit more than he could chew, and he said, "I'm not coming back here." And he had 3 psychics with him, and one of them happened to be Cassidy O'Connor, and she wrote a really good book about this case. It's called Diaries of the Dark Side. You can find it on the internet at Barnes & Noble, any of those places. Just a little plug there, because she's such a sweetie.
She is.
She wrote the book, and she did a fantastic job she's a young girl, and she really did a good job putting this thing out there, and she tells it from her point of view, and she is a real skeptic. So, finding everything here hard to believe. And when the demonologist left that day, he said, I'm not coming back. And he didn't tell any of these psychics who I was. They'd come from a long distance away. And what he didn't realize is when they had come in the house, they got to look at the obituaries, and I told them what had happened here. And she really took it quite personal when he walked away. She was very, very angry at him.
Yeah.
And she did a lot of homework trying to find me. And she finally did, because she couldn't remember her way back here. But she finally did find me, and that's how you, Michael, ended up coming into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Is through Cassidy.
Correct. It was quite amazing. I was originally supposed to be with those 3 psychics on that Saturday, but I was called the day before and said that I wouldn't be going, and I said, okay, fine. So that's actually the day I did the research at Fort Niagara, because I had planned already to go there, and so my wife and we went, and I had never been to the fort anyway. So here's all this information that I didn't know what I was getting information about, but yet it was all right there in front of me. And I remember leaving the fort. It was quite amazing because it has a long road before you get to the main road. And I stopped about halfway down the road and got out of the car. And I could see Lake Ontario from there, and I could see the shoreline going around. And it was like I could feel the energy out there, and I knew the energy could feel me. It was like almost a standoff. And I just made a comment. I said, okay. I said, there will come a time, some way, somehow, that we will meet each other. And but as it turns out, the history really turned out to be exactly what it was. It was just absolutely phenomenal to me. But to know that we were I had the history down as much as I needed to have, I think. And then from there, like you said, Cass had to look you up, and she did a great job of doing that. But the night, place the night, because I am not sure how it was all set up. I know what happened, but I wasn't sure how it was going to be set up to not be at the house, because that was one of the things I said to Cassidy, is the only way we're going to be able to do anything with this is to make sure the boy is not there, and to make sure the boy is not there and is himself, because that tells us the energy is down that hole, wherever that thing is. And that's when we needed to be there. So how did that get all set up, Cindy? I still to this day don't know how you guys set that up.
Well, she already knew, because she'd been in touch with me, and I told her everything that had gone on.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, when my grandson was going through this, there were big holes coming in his hands.
Yeah.
And in between the finger and the thumb, okay, at first it looked like some kind of a rash, and then it got to where it was purple, and then it was purple-black, and then it opened up, and then it was oozing like this clear liquid out of it, and then it had these little, it looked like blood poisoning going up his arms. And I wanted her to come and see this thing. But it could happen real quick and go away really quick. And after it happened, it looked like burn marks. Uh-huh. And I'd had him to the doctor a lot of times, luckily, because a counselor had seen the burn marks and decided that, somebody's burning this child,
Sure, abuse.
But I had documentation and all kinds of medicines that we tried to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
But she saw that, and I think she got a little bit worried that maybe there was something going on here that, wasn't the normal thing.
Right.
It wasn't the haunting, as it were. I still don't believe in the ghost thing.
Right.
And I do not believe in the demon thing.
Right.
I do believe there is an energy. because we have pictures of it.
Right.
Now, on those pictures, I see that energy being pulled out of the cameras, and I'm sure something's doing that. So, I'm a person that's like from Missouri. You have to show me.
Yeah.
So, she decided that she could not handle this alone, and she wanted to get in touch with you, and that's how I finally ended up meeting you.
Okay. I remember. Do you want me to recall that night, and then you can tell me what you thought, because we didn't have really a lot of communication, and it's not like me, particularly a place that I've never been before, and to walk
Probably
into
a good thing.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't see the picture with that big face in the middle of the air there. I don't know how that would have influenced me, but um, as it turned out, from what I remember, I was, man, I've been focused before, but I was never so focused as I was that night. I think we got there around midnight, and your grandson was out with his mom purposefully so that we could have access. And I remember I came in, and the first thing I did is I set up a picture of Michael the Archangel, lit a candle in front of it, had a couple other things there, Father Al's um, uh, ceremonial bowl from the Mayans that he used during his whole life. And I had holy water, I had his chrism. I figured this was going to be what we needed to do. And I think my first question, Cassidy went right over to you and sat down, and I think my first question to you was, "Where's room?" And at that point, you said down the hall on the left, but nobody ever goes in my room. And I said, "Okay." I said, "All right. Let's go." I had one person that was going to assist me, and everybody else stayed out with you, I believe. And so we headed down the hall, and we opened that door. And the guy that was with me, I'll tell you what, his jaw was hanging all the way down to the floor. If you guys, everybody out there, thinks The Exorcist was something, this room you cannot imagine. It is beyond your comprehension unless you were there. First thing you noticed when you walked in were the walls were all scratched all the way down through the plaster, from top to bottom. You could not touch the floor, literally. The mattress was ripped in at least a dozen places, like a knife had just split it open like a hot dog. The stuffing was coming out. The closets were all wood. There were two big ones. The wood shelves were literally split like a karate chop and laying in a heap in the bottom. This guy was looking at all of this, and he was going, if you could just say it, I said, "Concentrate, please. You have to concentrate." I said, "No holy water in this room. This room gets the chrism in each corner." I actually had to walk across the bed to get to the wall in the corner. And there's where the chrism went on the wall.